Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, I'm Dawn from BoulderReiki.com, and today I wanted to talk to you about a subject that is pretty prevalent these days, and that is anxiety. I personally have had a lot of experience with anxiety throughout my life, and consequently, a lot of very powerful, pretty fast methods to be able to work with it and overcome it without any type of medication, anxiety pills or antidepressants or anything, you know, that winds up just blocking the symptoms. So, first and foremost, I'd like to invite us to look at anxiety and what's really happening there. It's your autonomic nervous system kicking in. Why? Because you've had something happen to you. You may have had abuse when you were young, or some type of loss or grief, or currently, right now, with the way the world has been, I would say anyone that's not experiencing some degree of anxiety has a pretty not very sensitive nervous system. Our political system, we've had to be isolated with COVID. We've lost over 600,000 American lives. I would say, most all of us at times will experience anxiety to a greater or lesser degree. What's happened to me over the years is sometimes it's been debilitating. But the good news is because of that, I've spent many, many years researching what's happening in my energy system and what are the absolute best methods that can bring me back into balance. And I wanted to offer to you some personal experiences and things that have worked for me. I am not a medical professional. I am an authorized meditation teacher and have spent a lot of years, in self-discovery. So I also have a certification as a wellness coach. So the methodologies that I'm going to talk about bring in modalities from traditional Chinese medicine and also some of the Tibetan system. So basically, anxiety, as I was saying, isn't that you are mentally ill. It's not a disease like diabetes or a mental illness. It's simply your autonomic nervous system kicking in when there's something that's happened. So once again, you have some type of trauma or some type of heartbreak or sometimes of loss or, something that's made you feel frightened about your safety emotionally, physically. It kicks in. And there's a lot of hormones that come. You have your adrenaline, your cortisol, and it's actually there to protect you and kind of keep your senses awake. And, when we were out hunters and gatherers, you'd have to have this kind of alert to be able to survive. And in our modern society, there has been a lot of stress and a lot of pain, and we don't deal with grief very well. So our entire, adrenal cortisol nervous system can always be running on overdrive. And that can create imbalances of chronic anxiety or temporary bouts of anxiety. But it's not mental illness. It's kind of like your body's way of attempting to help you. So one of the biggest ways that we're going to heal this is to switch from the autonomic nervous system being activated to the parasympathetic. When the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, that is all of the calming chemicals, the oxytocin and all the feel-good chemicals will become activated, and you'll be able to digest food. Your body and your perceptions say, hey, the world is a very safe place. I feel okay being in it, and I feel okay being me. If we have anxiety and we immediately take an anti-anxiety pill like Ativan or benzodiazepine, that can work, but they don't work on the long run because you haven't learned yourself how to ride the horse of your own energy system and switch your revved up, imbalanced autonomic nervous system to your parasympathetic one. So from the tradition that I come from, Buddhist tradition, there's a very quick, surefire way of making that switch. The first and foremost, the process of working with anxiety is throughout the day, you just become lightly aware of, hey, how am I doing? What's going on with me? Kind of like, pull away from all the busyness and just check in with yourself. We can do that right now. Close our eyes and just feel, how am I? You may feel a little bit of flutteriness in the heart or in the belly, or a little bit of shakiness, or maybe some dullness. But throughout the day, you just have a light awareness. How am I doing? And if you do notice that there is some type of anxiety coming up for you, you feel it. A little bit of flutteriness. And what you can do to instantly switch from the ANS to the PNS, parasympathetic nervous system, is to take 3 long, deep breaths, and you're going to breathe in very, very slowly through the nose, and then you're going to feel the breath go down through the diaphragm and into the lower belly. And below your belly, you're actually going to expand your belly like blowing up a balloon. I know we don't like to stick out our bellies, but you're going to actually enlarge your belly, and then we're going to breathe out back through the nose. When you breathe in and out through the nose and into your lower abdomen, you're immediately activating your calming chemicals and your parasympathetic nervous system. You're telling the body, everything's okay, they're there. So we're going to do these 3 breaths together. So the first one, just breathe in through the nose very slowly, and we're going to pop out the tummy. And again. And again. So as I'm doing these breaths, sometimes I like to take my hand and hold it on my belly so I can feel the belly kind of coming out to expand. So do that, and you can already start to feel better. And that is the beginning of, having our energy and our winds be out of control and into something that we're feeling like we can ride the horse of our lives. The term winds comes from the traditional Chinese or Tibetan medicine. We don't talk about post-traumatic stress in that tradition or mental illness per se. We talk about wind imbalances. So one of the life force energies is called the wind. That's how life runs through your system. So sometimes if we have a lot of stress or trauma, instead of feeling that groundedness and that calmness that we live from our deep breath of the lower belly, everything kind of comes upward, and we become very cerebral with a lot of thoughts and a lot of ungrounded, chaotic energy. So that's called a wind imbalance. It also, that same type of anxiety in traditional Chinese medicine can also be called a heart shen imbalance. If we've had a lot of trauma, pain, abuse, horrible things happen to us, the heart can take on too much. And that can cause that anxiety too. They say that fear and anxiety, the root cause of that is heartbreak. The poor nervous system's just taken on too much. But if you feel that flutteriness, that imbalance or insomnia, that's the body's light-handed warning signal to say to you, hey, it's time for you to go into self-care. It prevents you from actually getting something much worse, like heart disease, diabetes, heart attack. So every time you have anxiety, your body's simply sending you a message. It's your friend saying, I need to take some time to do some self-care. So over the years, when this has happened to me, it actually happened at the beginning of this year. I thought I was like some Hi, holy yogini. And I wound up doing a juice fast, no solid food. And then I was doing some pretty heavy duty tantric breath work, like yogic stuff, which I probably shouldn't have been doing the two together. And after about 3 or 4 days in of doing this heavy duty yoga plus the fast, plus all the stress of COVID and whatever, I started to shake. I was like shaking, shaking, shaking. I remember driving and I was like, really shaking. I was scared and I couldn't sleep. And I had had this happen a couple of years ago when I was doing the same practices. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to implement a few different tricks to see if I can come back into balance because something went awry. And I was able to, in about 3 or 4 days, a few key tricks that I was able to get very, very calm and just completely quell that anxiety. So the first thing I did was when I was shaking and I felt like, something had gone out of balance, is I just shut down all social media. I shut down my Facebook and Instagram and my blog, and just stopped reading all the news and scary stuff, and pulled out a couple good books and listened to like Native American flute music. So I just wanted to, have some me time to feel calm and feel okay again. Um, and these things, when you get that unbalanced where you're really having panic attacks or shaking, it usually requires a holistic approach. You can't just do one thing to fix it. It's not just a pill. It's usually you need to do like a mind, body, emotion, stress level. Everything has to be attended to at once. So my protocol was to take a few days off to listen to my body and to come back into balance. Shut down social media. I went and got some acupuncture with a traditional Chinese doctor and also a massage through a Tibetan doctor. And they prescribed a formula called Jitters Away, which is this amazing formula they use in the Taoist tradition for this heart shend or wind imbalances. And I took quite a few. I took like 3 caps 3 times a day. And that kind of acted like a benzodiazepine or a anti-anxiety pill. So my nervous system was like, already starting to become really calm. At night, I kept the lights really low and wasn't on electronics. And took every single night, I took an Epsom salt bath with candlelight, and I took like a wooden brush and then brushed the whole body so I could calm the nervous system and also energize the lymphatic system. So the combination of all of these things worked really well. And in about 3 or 4 days, I was sleeping soundly. That whole shakiness had subsided. And I'd like to say that what I found through having this propensity to have anxiety is the root of what heals it has to come from within. A pill or a distraction will only block or temporarily provide a respite from what needs to happen in the core. Anxiety is that your biochemistry has kind of gone wonky based on something that happened, so there's a reality to it. But you have to find a way to get in control and switch from your autonomic nervous system to your parasympathetic nervous system. That parasympathetic nervous system works well if we feel a sense of inner warmth and well-being. So it comes back down to a lot of self-love and self-care. So if this happens to you again, like it's happened to me, and it does, and it probably will happen half a dozen more times in this life, you feel like you have anxiety, insomnia, and just really ungrounded and uncomfortable or shaking, frightened. It had gotten really bad a couple of years ago after I'd been doing some pretty high yogic practices. I actually took about 8 months to recover because I didn't have these tools of self-care. I didn't know what was happening to me. So now if I just nip it at the bud and really listen to my body, do those deep breathing exercises throughout the day wherever I feel like I've taken on too much. And if I do happen to get really, really, really stressed or frightened, or the winds are imbalanced, take a couple of days off. And not a vacation where you have more stress and go somewhere, but like, a few days to just be with yourself, take baths. I ate very nutritive foods that were very grounding. I took the supplements. I read books. I just created kind of a mandala of warmth and nurturing energy to kick in my nervous system and tell myself that everything's okay now. And there's that little light of warmth and well-being could kind of shine out again. So if it can happen to me, it could happen to anyone. And if I can recover, then I have faith that anyone who would experience this might be able to take a few steps towards self-care and recover completely. I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't want anything that I've said to be in lieu of a professional person's advice, but self-care can do a lot during this time where we take on a lot. And once again, it's not mental illness. There's nothing wrong with this if it happens. It's a natural and normal response to certain factors. So our job is to learn to listen to ourselves and become strong and ride the horse of our lives rather than having it, trample over us. And we can. And I believe that that's kind of the heart of the real spiritual path and our real yogic path toward well-being. So thank you for listening, and may everyone be free of anxiety ultimately, but if it happens, no problem. There's a few things we can do, and I'm going to send a link to the steps below this video of what things that worked for me. And thank you again for listening.